My name is Lily Snyder, and this is my 3351 final synthesis project. This is the first graphic organizer that will pretty much sum up everything that I'm going to talk about in this presentation. In an attempt to summarize an entire semester of learning in a 5-minute video, I will be talking about the topics that stood out to me the most throughout this course. I want to begin by introducing the term phonological awareness. This term is a very broad skill that includes identifying and manipulating the units of oral or spoken language. Students must be able to identify the aspects of words such as rhyming sounds, the number of syllables in a word, and beginning letter sounds. To me, this is just the beginning of understanding literacy as a whole. We will now go into our first important aspect by discussing the components of balanced literacy. Balanced literacy encompasses all the different types of literacy instruction that we have learned about. This includes 1. Interactive read aloud, 2. Shared reading, 3. Guided reading, and 4. Independent reading. An interactive read aloud takes place when a teacher is leading the class in a read aloud story. She is typically prompting the students with questions and allowing them to see the different aspects of the story and reading aloud. Number 2. Shared reading is when the students and teacher are reading the same story at the same time. A good example of this is when a teacher passes out a class set of a certain text and the class reads it aloud together. Number 3. Guided reading. Guided reading is when students are placed in a group and the group reads a book that is at their specific reading level. A teacher is involved in this reading, but the teacher is there for support. The teacher may guide the student through his or her thought process or ask in-depth questions throughout the reading. With my case study student, many times we practiced guided reading. We would read together and I was there to ask comprehension questions and help with difficult words and pronunciations. The fourth one is independent reading. Independent reading is where a student reads completely on their own. This story is often chosen by the student and it's at their reading level. A teacher may lead a discussion before or after the story, but not during the independent reading time. After talking about the components of balanced literacy, we are led into the next important aspect of teaching literacy, the Big Five. The Big Five includes phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, comprehension, and fluency. Now let's break these down. Phonemic awareness is the ability to focus on and manipulate individual sounds in language. If a teacher asks her students to answer how many phonemes are in the word cat, the student must be able to recognize that the k, a, and t each make their own sounds that come together to make the word cat. That is phonemic awareness. Number 2, phonics, is the relationship between written letters and their sounds. When a teacher writes the letters A, B, C on the board, the students should recognize these letters as individual sounds. At the beginning of the semester, my case study student had trouble seeing the individual letters within the words we were reading. We spent the whole semester learning to break down the words into their letter sounds and spell out each individual word. By the end of the semester, he is now breaking down the letter sounds in tricky words that he is unfamiliar with. The third one is vocabulary. Vocabulary is a student's knowledge of words. Vocabulary can be introduced secretively so that students are constantly learning new words and new meanings without having to memorize the words and their definitions. Challenging a student to read a story that they are unfamiliar with is a great way to help them grow. My case study student expanded his vocabulary this semester, and he learned to understand words based on context clues. He used the illustrations as well as the sentence to help him decode meanings of new vocabulary words. This is a skill that he will carry on with him as he gets older. The next aspect, fluency, is a student's ability to read with speed and accuracy. In other words, we don't want our reading to sound like we are robots. By learning to sound out individual letter sounds in the words he was reading, my case study student became a much more fluent reader. To practice fluency, I had my case study student read the same book a few times through. The first time, it was difficult for him to read it without sounding choppy and stopping at some words. He oftentimes stopped to ask questions. By his third time through the story, he was reading fluently and he was able to hear how the story should sound. This created fluency in his reading. Finally, the last piece of the Big Five is comprehension. Comprehension is how much of the story that a student is understanding and remembering. When a student is reading at a level that is too high for their understanding, they're going to have a very small amount of comprehension. This emphasizes the importance of reading at a student's accurate level. A student's comprehension can be tested by asking questions that prompt them to think within the text, think about the text while they are reading, and think beyond the text. Students can show comprehension by relating to the story or putting it in their own words. This is a summary of what I have learned this semester in 3351, and I hope you enjoyed synthesizing through this course with me. Thanks.